Dr. Cardona, thank you for the opportunity to visit with you by phone last week. I appreciated our conversation and loved the story about how you integrated the Iditarod into your curriculum at that point in time. Um, to have someone who has been at all levels working with kids, working with administrators, I think is a very unique perspective that you bring to the position for which you have been nominated. You know, when I mention Iditarod, I know that through working with your students and in your classroom, you know that we've got a very, very rural state. And with rural states, we have some very small schools, and there are challenges that come with that. It comes with teacher recruitment and retention, but it also comes with funding issues and certain disparities that can come about through use of formula or competitive uh, grant type funds. The department's Office of Rural Outreach, we think, is a pretty good communications tool for the department, but it really lacks any policy leverage as I understand it. It's more along the lines of the department's looking at programs, seeking to move forward with action, but then there's kind of a, oh, how is this going to work for our rural schools? How is this going to work for our smaller schools? So more of a, it's kind of an afterthought rather than being part of the central discussion. So I would like your input here in terms of what more we can do to ensure that our rural schools, our smaller schools, are not kind of the afterthought, and that when it comes to access for funding for these rural school districts, some are too small to really get many dollars from a formula grant, and then they don't have the capacity to apply and win a competitive grant. So they're really stuck in this bind here. Your views and what more can be done with a focus on our rural schools.
Thank you for the question, Senator Murkowski, and I too enjoyed the conversations and having the conversation about the Iditarod and someone that really knows it more than I did. It was really
I've
awesome.
invited you up. I'd love to show you around.
So thank you. You brought up the issue of rural schools and rural communities, as did Senator Collins, and it really it made me think about what I experienced when thinking about developing curriculum at the district or at the state level. I often felt that L's were an afterthought in the development of curriculum, and that the needs of English learners wasn't really at the table at times when thinking about how are we going to meet the needs of all learners. Similarly, I feel the same way about rural communities, that, as you mentioned, they shouldn't be an afterthought, that there has to be a seat at the table to make sure that when their needs are being considered, when we're talking about grants, when we're talking about competitive grants, or making sure we're meeting the needs of learners who are oftentimes marginalized or not given the attention that they should be given. So what I commit to is ensuring that rural needs have a seat at the table, or representatives of students that are in rural communities have a seat at the table, because your needs in those communities are unique. And unless we think about them when we're thinking about how to support students at the beginning, it will probably not get the attention that it needs. So I commit to that in terms of fund distribution, but also learning more. I'm very much interested in learning more about how the challenges in our rural communities are preventing students from gaining access to classes that they want, or having access to quality education during the pandemic. These are issues that are important to me, and I look forward to working with you and others to learn more about it, to make sure that they have a seat at the table, and that as we plan forward, if confirmed, that the perspective of our rural students is also taken into account.
Well, I appreciate your focus on that. I think we have learned from this pandemic, not only where health disparities exist throughout the country, but certainly where our educational disparities exist. Because if you are not able to access broadband, if you don't have that
Right.
internet, you don't have education. And I was going to ask you a question about statewide assessments. I understand that you've answered that now twice, so I will look to your responses. But I'm very concerned about some of these students who have been without not only the in-person instruction, but also the benefits that technology has brought to other students across the country during this time of COVID, and the disparity that existed prior to and unfortunately will probably be exacerbated. So I look forward to working with you. Thank you, Mr.